All right, good Tuesday to everybody. There are some things in the Bitcoin chart that have me concerned, and I wanted to go ahead and do another video. Usually I just do one a week. There's some things here I want to show that, I mean, they don't have to play out like this. And I know a lot of people would see this and say, well, that's a perfect retest, but this could also be a deviation. So here's the 4-hour chart, and I'm also going to show some altcoins that'll help you make a decision on, when it's a good time to buy the altcoin that you're looking at, or at least the ones we've been talking about, if this was to take place. So let me just jump into it real quick. I want to make this as short as possible. 4-hour chart, clean break of the triangle. This looks like a perfect retest. This is exactly what you want to see. Of course, you need continuation, and you want to see a 4-hour candle close above this resistance. If that was to happen, then of course this idea that I'm about to talk about would be completely invalidated. Currently, you're looking at the RSI. If you want to consider all this right here support, then it's sitting right on that support. If you broke through the 50 RSI, then that's bearish. So clearly, if we get a 4-hour candle into the triangle here, which I was actually talking about on Twitter this morning. Right here. Just joking around, said Bitcoin turned the car around yesterday. Forgot to turn off the stove, whatever. So the perfect retest has to get a 4-hour candle back above that resistance. If not, we're going down to the 38K dip that I was talking about in the previous video. I really believe that, that is a possibility. And I'm still seeing it. I mean, this is falling back into the triangle, and that's not a good sign. If you were to go to a higher time frame, you have an engulfing candle here off of this, which really that's more like a, I mean, you got a doji candle there, you got a shooting star candle there. These are, the supply up here is getting run into, and you're getting people either shorting or taking profits, or people realize that all of this right here is a lot of resistance that it has to get back through, and I really feel like it's going to turn over one more time. I was hoping, I talked about it in a previous video, I actually have a signal here talking about careful with alts if BTC breaks 46 to 48K in 2023. Of course, in 2024, it's not a problem because things will still be going up at that point. But it looks like we might get our correction prior to next year, which, I thought maybe Christmas was going to be a bullish Christmas, but there's a possibility it's not. Some altcoins still could go up, but I don't like to be the bearer of bad news. Of course, I want to see everything, continue to go up, but this could save you money if you have stable coins on the side and you're thinking about buying now. I would at least wait until you get a Bitcoin 4-hour close above. And again, like I said, the altcoin that you might be in currently, it may just go ahead and go up. Who knows? Not everything goes down with Bitcoin every time. But there is also a case to be made where you just go sideways in this channel. I mean, you could put it something like that. Yeah, that would be the approximate channel. But I'm not really concerned. I mean, that would be good for alts if it just went sideways for a while and consolidated sideways. And that's very possible. I mean, there's patterns out there that look that way. But the pattern that I'm keyed in on that I showed in the video yesterday is the one that, I mean, if you were to do just some kind of trend line here, this isn't perfect, but if you were to, then, as price continues to go sideways, it could, well, let's see here. Let me make sure I do get it better. I'm just trying to line up as many of the candle bodies and wicks as I can. So something like that. It can definitely dip under this line temporarily, but if you were to put like we're talking about putting this fib line on it, anywhere from, I mean, my guess is it could come as low as 38.3 to 37.8 is kind of what I'm thinking now. And that's about what I was talking about yesterday. It's pretty close. But again, if it stays above this upper maybe it just pops down here for a second and then comes back above, then of course we're still bullish, but it has to get above right around 43K. I mean, that's the level you want to see it close a 4-hour candle above. And then of course there's other resistance up here at 44 4 or so that it would still have to get above. But you always want to see your current resistance get flipped and start creating market structure again. Uh, maybe this is your one move. It corrects down to 2, 3, 4, and then finally gets up to the 48K level. So there's still a possibility that that happens, but anywhere between, I've been talking about that 47 to 52K range, that's an area you have to consider. Things could really wash out from there, because at that point we would probably be getting closer to February, and we know historically February to April, when a halving is starting to get closer, anytime between February and April, you usually get a much bigger washout. So this would be, I mean, even if we came down to 38K or something before this happened, this would be very small compared to what could happen further up the line. And I'm talking about what, 1, 2, 2 to 4 months away. So that's a long ways away. But just be aware that this is a possibility. And what I'm talking about is, either it does that, or it does something like this and gets back into our triangle, and comes up, fakes out one more time, and then comes up on the other side and fakes out again to retest the new lost support, which turned into resistance, and it would do something like this. And then finally you'd break out of it. So I don't really see that this would take a long time to play out either way. I would suspect by, what is today? The 19th. I would suspect maybe a week from now, we'd have a much clearer picture. But you don't want to lose, if you do get back into the triangle here, you don't want to lose right around 41K. If you lose that, then we're definitely coming down to 38K, maybe even as low as 37.5, something like that. But I really think this is what you'll enjoy a lot more. It's really important to look at Bitcoin pair charts, because it gives you a lot different information than what a USD would, because you're comparing the strength of Bitcoin versus the altcoin you're looking at, versus, you're not really looking at the USD price, because USD or USDT even can fluctuate a little bit based on DXY, what it's doing and the strength of the dollar. But the view you get from Bitcoin is a lot clearer, because every altcoin, for the most part, anytime there's a big Bitcoin pump or a big Bitcoin dump, it reacts much more to what Bitcoin's doing than what the dollar's doing. So that's why looking at these BTC pair charts are important. And I've got some things drawn up here already. Here's one example with SUI versus something that IOTA already did. So SUI is going to do this, maybe not the exact same target levels, but it'll be similar. And money flow back here when it was doing this was pretty much just flat. It was just kind of going sideways, but the VWAP was starting to turn up. So if we compare what, and I may have to go down to a different time frame here, but let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's kind of like a triangle on the VWAP, which is the yellow area. There's no bullish div yet on the daily. If we go down to like a 4-hour chart for this, it's kind of similar to what this was doing, except this had green money flow at the time on the 12-hour chart. If you go down to the 4-hour on this one, it did turn red before that final bottom happened and it took off. So let's just see. So we're comparing 4 to 4. And we were bullish a little bit back here as well. See how this was green and then went red temporarily, then green, and then finally went deep red. And really this money flow is, it's a lot similar to RSI. I just like looking at it because it's just a better visual aid, I think. So here's what I'm thinking. And this is on SUI specifically. You're just understand that altcoins, they're going to be different. Not every one of them is going to do this exact same pattern, and I'll show some of those examples here in a second. All right, so my expectation is, let me just draw a line here and we'll see. Okay, notice how this, as this came down, it lost this support and then it came back up and retested it. Think, let's see if I can get this right here. The problem with this is that just because patterns look similar doesn't mean it's going to play out the exact same way. Because in my mind, this first impulse here was this one, this second impulse was this one, and then it started coming down from there and created this next little hill right here. So 1, 2, 3, and then you get a final 4. And this is on Bitcoin pair charts, just remember. And what it's doing is coming back and retesting this support area. So that's what's interesting to me is it seems like on the Bitcoin pairs, either you have coins that are creating a double bottom or they're creating like a higher low that's really similar to a double bottom. Let me see if I could just step up here, make this a little bit more clear. Yeah, I mean, that's more similar. So you've got this support where it tried to break out and tested it again. This was very similar to this, pretty obvious there. And then you had a rejection in 2 different areas here as it went up, and that's kind of what happened here. The only question I have is, does this entire move right here equal this whole thing? But I don't think that it does. I really believe this is this, and you get another dip. But that would make this structure a lot bigger than this one. Yeah, it doesn't have to play out exactly like this. I mean, they could be combined in a way. Trying to get a better view of this because I know what the pattern looks like, but it just doesn't look quite the same on this one. And usually that's because it hasn't finished its move yet, coming back down. And then once it finally finishes it, you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes more sense. But see, this is more of a flat pattern compared to this one was much more aggressive down. So that's kind of why this looks more like this, where it's just a shallow correction, in my opinion. So it could be more like this, where, once it gets back under here, it just rejects, kind of like this one did. It rejected right at that line. That one's a little bit tougher. It's not exactly clear, but I think we're getting much closer to a bottom for SUI is the point. And one way you can, watch this if you want is on the daily chart, you've got this falling wedge that's happening. So if you just disregard what's happening on the price action, you just say, okay, I've got a falling wedge here on my RSI. All I have to do is wait. And once I get a clean break of the upper trend line here, and especially if I start to push into the 50 RSI, then I know that this last correction is done if there is one. I mean, I would suspect that there is one just because, well, we've still got 6 hours left on this candle, but you've got a bit of a spinning top or some indecision happening on this candle. And usually when that happens, it allows the bears to step in and push it down lower. And I say bears, I don't like to actually make it sound like it's a competition. You have people stepping in here and taking profits or shorting, and it needs one more dip down. So yeah, there's no, let me just see back here on the 4 hour. Even with this, we didn't really get we didn't get a bull div. Let's see. I bet we did on the hourly though. Yeah, there was a slight bull div on the hourly for this one prior to the move. So see right there, price action was coming down and your momentum was coming up on RSI, and that was your exact bottom. So that's one thing you could watch on this one if you wanted to pull up something like the hourly SUI Bitcoin chart. And I know, I mean, you see this and you're like, man, that thing's about to take off. But usually when you see a really parabolic move like this, and it doesn't just kind of slowly move its way up. I know this looks real parabolic here, but this is on a Bitcoin chart, so it looks much different. On a USD chart, it wouldn't look the same as that. But on a lower time frame, when you just get a quick impulse like that, especially when it's pushing right into resistance, usually you're going to get another dip down. But clearly on the hourly chart, it is bullish. In fact, you've got red money flow going to green. Momentum looks real good. So this would have been a really good, leverage trade, like low leverage trade, or I bet that went about 5%, didn't it? Yeah, over 5%. So yeah, if we look at this one on the hourly chart, you're just looking for some kind of bullish div to give you an idea that it's ready to go. Because even this one, if you look right here, if you look back here, this one kind of did the same thing. Let me check this out, where there was no bull div present at all at this point, and it was still within the triangle or coming down. And then you got this real deep move to wash people out, and then you got an explosive move back up into a bullish posture on the hourly chart, and that's what's happening right now. So I would suspect that that's probably going to happen, where it has one more push back down, and it could take a while to play out, but that's kind of what I figure. I figure we're somewhere in here on SUI. It looks real similar, doesn't it, right there, where it did this little W pattern right there. So it had a base, came up, kind of created a W, moving more vertical. So if this was to reject here, which I suspect it will, it'll kind of do something similar where it'll kind of stay up here for a little bit, maybe push up one more time and then roll over. And then, eventually it'll create that bottom. So, SUI, Reef, audio. I'll show you audio real quick. So again, this is audio, Bitcoin. All of these, if you're holding these, they're going to be fine. They're going to go back up. But I mean, I just don't know how much of a dip they're going to put in before this move happens. I would say it's probably between 5 and 10%, but it could even be something like 15%. This one's just, been working its way up. And I don't normally like to run a trend line through a big wick like that, but in this case, I'm just trying to connect as many wicks as I can. All right, so this is audio on the daily, and I'll put IOTA here on the 4 hour. And you can see kind of the same thing. This one's really hard for me to figure out because I feel like it's doing the same thing as what SUI is doing, because you can see this dip right now. But this is the reason why I'm still holding audio. I didn't sell any of it because it is going up, slowly going up on the Bitcoin chart. But it's a really hard one to read because the pattern doesn't look the same to me. It right here it does initially, but once you get over here into this, it just looks a lot different. So I would suspect it's probably on its last little dip, and it's going to have that dip when Bitcoin does its dip. Let's just see what's going on. Yeah, we're still dipping into the triangle. And I know I need to get this video out to you as quick as possible because it takes a while to process, but you're probably going to see this after Bitcoin's already well into the triangle. That's why I wanted to go ahead and post it on Twitter. And that's a good point. I mean, check my Twitter first because usually I'll post there if it's something important. Yeah, so that's audio. This one's really interesting to me on the RSI because it's doing like a triangle, and this is easy to figure out how to play it because we know you just play the breakout. And on the breakout, we want to see market structure. We want to see higher highs, higher lows, which it is doing right now currently, although this is a lower high or an equal high on the RSI. So if it does one more dip with Bitcoin, it could exit out of the bottom here temporarily. But once you got that move back above 50 RSI, and especially above the triangle, you'd feel pretty good about it. This is a bearish div on market cipher right here. But again, this kind of just looks like a triangle that's forming on market cipher as well. So you'll see this. Let's see if we can just kind of get an idea on timing. That would, well, that would put us out there pretty far. I doubt it'll last that long, but that would be early January before the breakout. And that kind of follows the narrative sometimes on what Bitcoin and the alts do. You know, Christmas could be a boring time, and then after January starts, it takes off. But who knows? I mean, I don't know one way or the other. Nobody knows. All we can do is just use the information we're given at the time and make our best guess on it. Here's Reef. I'm just going to quickly go through some of the Bitcoin charts or Bitcoin pair charts of coins that I've talked about a lot recently. I really like the structure that that Reef has been putting in here. Let's see what this is doing. Yeah, Reef, I kind of feel like it's going to have DeFi in general, I think is going to move. And Reef will be one of the winners for that once Bitcoin does this last dip. Well, last temporary dip before another move up is what I mean. But yeah, you might just see Reef sweep the lows here. Yeah, I mean, this would make a lot of sense right here that it would come down to this, which I don't know what that's on the USDT chart, but I could see it sweeping down like that before the next move. And that would, on the BTC chart pair, that would be about 10%. So yeah, I think that confirms it. Average 10% dip on the Bitcoin charts for most of these. Let's see. Not all of these are going to have Bitcoin pair charts, by the way. I don't really talk about GALA much, but here's that one. Yeah, that one's really hard to read. You're under the 50 RSI, so that's not good. I would say this one's probably doing a 3 drive down. Something like that. I mean, it's not going to immediately pop out of here like this, but just kind of doing a falling wedge type situation. And really, I should have done something like that where it does more of it does a bowl, like a rounded bottom out of this. Let's see what else. Does XPRT have one? It does. Yeah, so this is one of the ones that already popped out of this structure. And you can see it's pretty similar, really. I mean, here's the daily. And see this last flush out it did before the move up. That's a great look. Um, let's see. I mean, there is a bearish div here on the daily, so this one is going to come down some and maybe retest some of this area, but it's looking good anyway. But yeah, this overall shape, like especially if I go to the daily on this, you can see that overall shape is very similar, and it just came back down to retest this support. So any Bitcoin pair chart that you're looking at, you want to look at this right here where it based, and it wants to come down on all these and touch that. And that's exactly what happened here. It wants to touch that and then go. Um, Let me just step back one, and I'll show that on Reef here. So here's all the support. I mean, I know it would probably make more sense in what I'm saying for this to come all the way down to here, but I don't think it's going to do that because here's all the support right here. So maybe it's looking to come back to this one. That would make more sense to me. Yeah, that's that 10%. So somewhere in here is what you'll see. So it's just building structure 1, 2, 3, and then after that one, it may have a bigger impulse on this chart. Maybe up to one of these order blocks here. Audio, I'll just step back one and show what I'm talking about one more time, just so the so it hits home. Yeah, so audio would be something like this in this scenario. It's about a 8% dip maybe on Bitcoin chart. Yeah, something like that. So that one has less downside in my opinion. But again, I don't think I'm going to sell any of these. I mean, I'm holding them still. There's just no reason for me to sell it because I really believe in this scenario and that it'll be ready to go once Bitcoin does this last dip. Let's see. So we did audio. What else do I have? I don't know if Pond would have one. Yeah, it does. Okay. Pond has a really nice chart, actually. That's a higher low on the Bitcoin chart. So yeah, it really wouldn't come down much either because here's all this support. I would say, well, if it comes back down and retests this area, which is just right in here, retesting that imbalance, then it could be as much as 10%. But if we put fibs on it, I mean, it could stop anytime, really. I think best case scenario, it's already done, or it needs about a 7 or 8% dip before it's ready to move up. Yeah, it's already hitting the golden pocket, so it could already be ready. It could be one of those coins that hasn't made its big move yet, and it either retraces less or maybe it goes up when Bitcoin comes down. That can happen, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not selling some of my altcoins because it's just not enough to worry about. Okay, so we talked about Pond. I guess we could look at ETH real quick, just to because ETH kind of shows the health of the alt market. Well, that one's more interesting. I mean, it could even be done with its dip now, unless it's testing this over here. Oh, that's more possible. Okay, maybe a little bit more dip. I mean, you don't want it to lose this level for sure. Some similarities here on the overall macro. A lot of similarities, actually. Yeah, I mean, ETH may be one of the first movers out of this if it's the daily chart. RSI made a double bottom here, which would really be like a higher low. Yeah, it's a little bit higher than that one. Money flow is tapering up. You wouldn't want to see money flow come back down like that, though. It's tough to call this. I mean, it may keep tapering down really, really tight and then take off. I can't tell if this structure right here is this or if it's this. Either way, I mean, it's just really tightening down hard. Let's just see what the 4 hour looks like. So it's already tested the support area multiple times and it's retesting this breakout. So maybe this is it. It's just testing that on the 4 hour. So we went up, up. And I don't recommend, by the way, doing these pattern comparisons unless you're really experienced with it, because they can definitely turn around on you. Just because you think you see something in a pattern doesn't mean it's going to be right. I don't know. That one's hard to read. I still can't tell. Maybe it's going to come down a little bit and act like it's going to pop up and then come down one more time. But this is going to scare a lot of people on this chart anyway. How they're going to be thinking that this is a well, it doesn't have to be a pattern that's scary. And this is actually a good pattern at the base sometimes. because you're just going to get a breakout out of it. But you've got this. I think we're going to get a breakout anyway. But usually, what happens is all of this pressure pushing down against your support down here. If that continues, then it pushes it right out the bottom. And we definitely don't want to see that because that would cause, or that would mean that the market is looking much worse. Yeah, this one's really tough. I mean, it could be done, but the 4 hour money flow doesn't really tell us that yet. It needs to push up more. I mean, this is very bearish currently. We're under the 50 RSI, but we are way oversold too. Yeah, there's not even a bullish div here just yet. So maybe one more push up, push down, another fake out, and then finally you get that break above. But obviously, if a 4 hour candle closes below, well, at least this on the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, then it could cause some bleeding of altcoins more than that 10% dip that I was talking about. Let's see, Ethereum. What's some other ones we've talked about recently? Let's see what we put on here. Dion. Yeah, Dion kind of it had a good move, and I actually took some profits, but all I can look on this one is the USDT. I'll just update this one real quick. I mean, we got a really good push. It was a perfect bottom call, and I actually did a leverage move or leverage play out of this. I think I called it somewhere in here, and I ended up getting about 10% off that leverage. Well, it was 10% times 5x, I think is all I did. But clearly we're getting a lot of resistance here, and it's wanting to roll over. You're under the 50 RSI. Yeah, 4 hour it rejected right at the 50 RSI. So I just don't like the chart right now, but probably going to come down here and test this area if I had to guess. I think that would be the point. Yeah, because this was the bottom. So that's kind of what I was getting at is on the Bitcoin chart. It seems like all these want to come down to here somewhere. So I would just say be careful with this one, or don't worry about it, I guess, if it does dip some more, which it could come down 15% even. But I see that in the chart that it could do that. Let's see. Some of these don't have Bitcoin pair charts, so I'm not going to mess with them. I'll do KAS. Let's see what this is doing. Okay, this is finding temporary support anyway. It's not clear just yet. KAS should have a Bitcoin chart. Well, there's not enough history here, I don't believe. But it makes a lot of sense to me that it actually tested it one time already, but here's this little shoulder pattern that you've seen me talk about before. I think it might come back down and test it one more time, maybe a little bit lower even. What would that do for KAS? Whoops. Yeah, I mean, about the same thing as what we're talking about on these other altcoins, maybe 8 to 10%, something like that. Let's just see what the fibs show, if that makes sense on this Bitcoin pair. I mean, it's touched the 0.5 already, so it's really enough. But sometimes you see these things come down to the golden pocket as well. So there's some reason to believe it could come down to there. And I think on the KAS chart, see the KAS chart I had anywhere from 8 cents to 9 was that shoulder on the USD. Let's just see what the USD shows. Yeah, that was actually touched the golden pocket already. I mean, I would say the easy way to play this is just, if you don't own any yet, you could just wait to see, once that breaks above, and then you'd know that the bottom was in. I'm not seeing any bullish divergence yet, although there is a little bit here on Problem is you're getting bearish divergence coming down here on the top. 4 hour chart. Let's see what the one. Yeah, I'd really like to see, one more impulse down and then you'd get your bullish div. There's not enough there, I don't think. There's a tiny bullish div there, but you're back under the 50 RSI on hourly, so I don't really like it just yet. I know a lot of people are holding this one and it's going to do fine. I mean, it's going to go up for sure. You see Braver and Excalibur and other people talk about it on Twitter. But in my experience, usually these shoulders get retested. And that's why I believe that this is the buy area, kind of right in here between 8 and 9 cents. So we'll see. I mean, we'll just have to see how it plays out. I don't know for sure. Okay, what was the other one? Zeph, I think we were going to talk about. I don't think that one has a Bitcoin pair, but we'll just look at the USD or USDT. Yeah, it's right into the shoulder now. So what was our... Oh, wait, I'm pulling from the wrong thing. Yeah, we're hitting 382, so it's really enough. I mean, it's enough of a retrace, but I would suspect even if that is the bottom, that it's just going to go sideways for a bit. So far, we're consolidating 26 days, a minimum of 30 days, I would think, and up to 45. And that reminds me, actually, let's look and see what Space is doing, because Space was kind of doing the same thing. Yeah, it's real similar. So here's your shoulder. Where do I want to pull this from? I guess from down here. I don't know why it didn't touch the 382 exactly. That's weird. Maybe that was just a deviation right there. I mean, there's your support right there. That was kind of a deviation. So yeah, I mean, it's touched the 382. I would be real surprised if it came down to the 0.5, but this $18 area for one final fake out down could happen. So just understand that that is a possibility. We look at like a 4 hour chart. What is it showing? I mean, if Bitcoin was to dip, then it could cause a last little fake out from some of these, but I think it would be short lived. It's trying to build, some structure here under the 50 RSI, still bearish. Hourly still bearish. Money flow seems to be trying to taper back up to green. And daily, whoops, wrong one. Daily chart. Yeah, you're under the 50 RSI on daily, which could just be a fake out down because there is a lot of RSI support here. So yeah, I really don't think it would have much more downside. What are we looking at on consolidation? About the same. Yeah, so it's interesting that some of the biggest movers like Space and what did we look at last? Was it Caspa and Zeph? They I think Zeph was the one we looked at last. So Zeph and Space are really similar as far as their structure currently. They're real close to that shoulder and could just have one quick washout to, try to clear out some leverage longs if there is leverage on these. I'm not sure there is, but they may be trying to wash out spot players too, thinking it's going lower. KMD and waves. I mean, these are some that I posted recently. Well, I guess I could look at a couple of them just real quick. Because waves is one of the ones that gets gets the party started, so to speak, once things are bullish again. Yeah, that's a real good view of the money flow, how it's slowly working its way back up. So daily doesn't look bad on this one. It's above the 50 RSI. Let's just see what the 4. Yeah, 4 is bullish. Not really seeing any problems there. Hourly is currently bearish. That was a tougher one to read. I mean, it looks more bullish than the rest of them, but to me, it just looks like it's going to go sideways for now. So it might just be waiting on Bitcoin to make its final little move. Yeah. All right. So which one have I not looked at that a lot of people like? I guess A0 is another one. Okay, that doesn't have, so that one doesn't have a Bitcoin chart, but we can look at this one. And when you're looking at charts, always start from a zoomed out view. This one's been real bullish on the daily. I haven't looked at this one in a long time. That was a that would have been a good play. I talked about it when it was down here, but I never got back into it. Yeah, so money flow could be peaking soon. Doesn't mean it's going to just go straight down at that point. It just means that once market cipher puts in a red dot here, sometimes on a daily chart, that means it was a good profit taking area. And usually you can go down to lower time frames and really get an idea if it's ready to roll over yet. I mean, it did make a lower high there, but finding tops is really difficult. So just be careful with that. I mean, to me, this looks like it could curl back up. Yeah, I'd have to take more time looking at this one. Just check one other thing. Yeah, the RSI and the stochastic here, Market Cipher has a way to look at it while you're looking at all the other information. It's kind of like an all-in-one deal. It's nice. So these two are, when they're apart like this, it means that the move is really disjointed and it's more likely to just keep going sideways for a bit. See how it was real tight here while money flow was coming up. That means, whatever direction it's going, that it's going to keep going that way. And then once it started falling apart here, and especially once it got under the 50 RSI, it basically all fell apart and then came down here and found support. Yeah, right now there's really nothing to see. I would say it's probably coming back down here to 158 to retest this area. That's about where the shoulder was. Trying to think if that makes sense. What would that be? Yeah, that could be right. 8%. So it's really interesting to me that a lot of these altcoins are showing this 8 to 10% dip that could happen if Bitcoin continues to come back into the triangle and then eventually exit out of it down to this 37.5 to 38.5 zone. Oh, Phantom, that's a good one. I think that should have a Bitcoin. Yeah. All right, so here's Phantom, currently bearish on the hourly. So here was our support. Or wait. Oh, I'm on the hourly chart. Hang on. Yeah, so this is the move all the way down from 2021, found support in October. And this is on the Bitcoin chart. I mean, it probably made a move before that on the USDT. But this is the strength of Phantom versus Bitcoin, which it has some strength against it from a macro perspective. It's clearly bullish. I don't know that it reflects so much. Here, let's do it this way. Let's see what it's showing at the same point here. Yeah, so it is very bullish against it. Yeah, it looks like it wants to come down some. That's that shoulder. I'd already touched the 0.5 though. I mean, money flow is on the USDT is coming into the red, which means anytime you see that, that means also on that same chart, it's under the 50 RSI. So anything under 50 RSI is going to be red here. Anything over is going to be green, technically speaking. Yeah, I know you're seeing it chop here a little bit, but once it's in the green, if it pops below 50 temporarily, it just does a little dip here. And there is sometimes you'll see me use these parallel channels. I think there is a case where it could come back down to here, but I'm trying to see about where that would be. I haven't looked at this chart closely enough to really have an idea one way or the other. I can't really find a structure here that it would come down to. I guess it could come down to here. Yeah, that'd be about 8% as well. This one's a little bit more tricky to me. 4 hour, hour. Yeah, it looks like it just wants to go sideways for now. But I would really consider this a shoulder right here on 4 hour. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now that I'm looking at it. Okay, so here on Phantom, just understand that if Bitcoin does that move back down, then you're probably coming back down to the 0.5 here on the Bitcoin pair chart. And I don't know what, oh, here it is. Okay. That would mean it would come down to here. Yeah, that's about 8%. Okay. So yeah, things are still lining up with all these altcoins, even though, like I said, I haven't looked at that one, but that makes sense. What else? What else? What else? I'm trying to think of any coin. I can't look at QUBIC on BTC. Um, but one thing we can do, let's see. Actually, I can't look at QUBIC at all on a trading view chart. I wish I could, because I can't use my tools for it. But what I can do is bring it up on the Safe Trade site, and then we'll see if there's any information we can glean from it, just based on some of the other things we're talking about. I mean, I would just consider this whole thing a shoulder, and I know it's huge and it's a consolidation area, but that's basically what it is. So there is still a chance that it could dip kind of into the 3,400 region, but this is so much support. I don't see it breaking. You're just getting this really, like we were talking about before. I would put a trend line here. I think that's about right. So I put a trend line here. And when it broke above the trend line, I know that it was ready to go. Volume was real good back here. Volume's real light currently. But to me, it does look like people are starting to step in here and buy more. And there was one other thing I was going to mention. This is just kind of a more of an interesting thing, but this is one of the creators of QUBIC. He's working on QUBIC, and he, from what I've been told anyway, he was one of the like first three investors of Bitcoin or top three investors of Bitcoin, back when it first came out, something like that. I don't know exactly how it goes. Maybe somebody can correct me in comments. But he posted this last night. Within the next 24 hours, we expect a bidding battle for the third QUBIC smart contract. Watch it live on QUBIC.li or live.QUBIC.li/IPO. And he said, let's see, smart contract must be accepted by the quorum. And we will have a whole week of bidding. This is something he posted a couple of weeks ago. It talks about watch IPO coins burning. And I guess he has been talking about some stages within the progress of this project where they're going to be doing burns. And of course, that is good for us because it lowers the amount of coins that are available. It's almost like if there was a big whale that was buying a bunch of it and just decided to hold it for a long time, you're taking those coins off the market and it allows price to go up more freely. So QUBIC is a real good buy here, in my opinion. I mean, I've been talking about it a while. If you haven't bought any yet, then at least consider it. Not financial advice, just kind of journaling what I'm doing. I really don't know. I'm probably missing something that I haven't talked about in a while. ICP already made its move. I guess we could just look at that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it had a big move. It's got a red dot here on the daily on the Bitcoin chart. So I would suspect it's coming down a bit. And I actually talked about taking profits recently on Twitter. So it's not something you want to jump in right now. Oh, DNX. I know some of you asked about DNX before. Okay, no, there's no Bitcoin chart for that. We can look at, actually, I don't know. Do I have a chart on this? Yeah, I do. Okay. So this was something I was talking about previously with DNX. Somebody had asked me about it, and I said, well, all you really got to do is watch this triangle. And if you get a 4-hour candle below the triangle, then it's probably coming down. That's exactly what happened. I see some money flows in the red. This is on the daily. What does 4 hours show? Yeah, this is looking better anyway on the 4 hour. And you actually, yeah, you got a bullish div there, but money flow is still kind of thick. It's trying to roll up. I don't think it's clear just yet if it's ready to move. But one thing you can do again is you just draw your trend line here. You could draw it all the way down to here, this next support. There you go. Once it pops out of it, it's probably ready to move again. Let me just see if I see anything else here. Shoulder kind of right in here. And definitely a lot of support. When I say shoulder, there, it's a support level basically. I like this support level. Looks pretty good, but again, wait for some confirmation there, I think. Yeah, it may base here and go sideways and then break out again. DNX pawn. Okay. Well, I'm going to end it there. Hopefully that helps everybody. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, or let me know if there's any charts you want me to look at for you. Take care.